Widows, gifts, and courage. 3 points for reflection on this 32nd Sunday of the church's year. Both the first and the third reading talk about widows. And I've mentioned before that in the scriptures, being a widow meant being without any financial resources or security. The social structure of the day was that if your husband died, all the property went back to the husband's family. The widow was left with absolutely nothing, usually not even a place to live. Even the Hebrew word for widow helps us to understand what she meant in that society. The root of the word means unable to speak. In other words, she had lost her voice. She had no say in the matter. She was, in effect, being silenced. So in short, being a widow was synonymous with being poor and vulnerable. And they had the center stage in the first and third reading, because both widows bring a gift. The gift is the second point for reflection. And we heard from the book of Kings the story of Elijah asking the widow to give him something to eat. She has nothing, and he's making demands of her. And she gives. And because she gives, the flour and oil are there for a year for her sustenance. And in Mark's gospel, we hear the story of another widow, unnamed, that Christ was observing her and others putting things in the treasury. It would be like me looking at all what you put into the collection basket. But Jesus makes the point that this widow who gave 2 small coins worth less than a penny apiece, that she really gave more than all those that piled the dollar bills in our culture. I hope not dollar bills, $10 bills into the basket. I don't often make public confessions, but I will tonight that I suspect, maybe like you, I often give from my surplus rather than from my substance. If I give money, I look to see what I can afford to give. If I volunteer time, I ask myself, can I do that? If I'm giving clothing to St. Vincent de Paul, it's not something that I was going to wear tonight. And if I give food, or if I see people bringing food for St. Vincent de Paul every week, that doesn't mean that you're going to go hungry tonight. You have lots of other food to eat. We should not knock giving from our substance. It does a lot of good. But the type of giving that the Scripture is talking about today is, in a sense, a total gift of self, relying not on ourselves, but on the Lord. I can't personalize what that really means for each one of us here. It's been said that God does not speak to us or send us Xeroxed letters. We're all different. So what it means in your particular situation to give of your substance is for you to reflect on in more detail. But the final point I want to make this afternoon is that the 2 widows exercised great courage in their giving. The first was courageous enough to give the last bit of her food to this visiting prophet. And the woman in the gospel gave all that she had to the treasury. Perhaps Christ is inviting us to exercise courage in giving, not just from our surplus, but from our substance. Courage in giving time and understanding and patience and forgiveness to another. That courage is not about giving up a loaf of bread or a couple of small copper coins. It's giving up ourselves, sometimes giving up our pride, giving up our desire always to win. Sometimes it's speaking up for the voiceless. It's speaking up for those who have been silenced in our own society. Not widows anymore, but other characters in our own society that really have no one to speak for them. And they range at times from the unborn to the terminally ill. At times we need to speak on their behalf. Widows, gifts, and courage. 3 things to reflect on as we gather this afternoon in prayer.